Hey, it's that Deadeye guy. Let's talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. The latest entry in Ubisoft's iconic series takes place in ancient Greece during the Peloponnesian War, a bloody conflict between the states of Athens and Sparta. You're placed into the sandals of one of two siblings, Alexios or Cassandra. After a quick introduction showing King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans at the Battle of Thermopylae, you're handed the reins to kick off your Odyssey. From the very beginning, this title is an open-worlder. You can go pretty much anywhere once you acquire your ship, but there are some pretty significant restrictions. More on that later. The game is gorgeous at first glance, but this is a series that has some pretty significant expectations. It's going to take more than some pretty world building to impress. I've not played an Assassin's Creed game since the one set during the American Revolution. I absolutely adored the first 4 titles with Altair and Ezio as the main protagonists, but the poor structure and ridiculously annoying main character in 3 killed the series for me. After hearing some praise for this latest entry, I wanted to take a dive back into it and give it a shot. First things first, this is not a traditional Assassin's Creed title. I'm not sure if the last few games were like this, but as an old schooler, I was baffled that most enemies would survive sneak attacks from stealth at the beginning of the game. If Altair got the drop on somebody, they were dead, regardless if they were a boss or not. In Odyssey, even regular minions can survive being stabbed in the kidney, and then they'll just immediately turn around and start swinging a gladius at you. This game is attempting to be more of an action RPG with stealth elements. There are 3 skill trees, with only one of them being focused on, actually assassinating people. It took until I was about 60% through the game to have built up the necessary skill points and acquired all of the needed plus assassin damage gear to be able to play the game like an Assassin's Creed title. That was more than a little annoying for me. While the regular melee combat isn't bad, it's still not something I want to dedicate large swaths of time to in a game like this. Tastes might differ, but to me, running into a compound, hacking and slashing like a berserker doesn't seem very assassin-y, and even as a stealthy build, I was forced to do it throughout the game. Combat is generally pretty decent in this title, though not something I'd write home about. The mechanics of baddies are pretty easy to figure out, and they literally glow bright red when they're about to perform a special ability that cannot be blocked or parried. I do like that the style of combat changes for you depending on the type of weapon you decide to use. Spears feel different from swords, which feel different from using two-handed axes. This gives the player a little preference on how they want to engage in battle. Gear upgrades are a constant. You will find ever so slight upgrades to each slot of your equipment as you level up and complete quests. Legendary items you find will remain their gear level unless you constantly upgrade them at a blacksmith with materials that can be a complete pain to acquire. This is a requirement as using gear that is significantly lower level than your character will be a massive detriment to you and your ability to fight. The ship mechanic returns from previous titles, though I didn't pay much attention to it. I essentially upgraded it enough to where I could complete the required naval battles to advance the main story. Beyond that, my ship was pretty much an afterthought, especially since instant quick travel is widely available once you acquire the different observation points around the islands. As a professional mercenary, you're free to participate in the war for money and gear. They come in the form of a land battle where you have to defeat enemy captains in succession, and naval battles where you must destroy a small fleet of the opposing army's ships. You can choose to fight for Sparta or Athens. There's really not much of a difference between the two, other than literally red or blue. Whichever side is victorious will take over the region, and all of the forts and military camps in that region will now be filled with troops from the winner's side. The greatest joy I derived from this title was quietly assaulting large, occupied military compounds like an ancient big boss.
What? What the hell are you talking about?
Once I acquired most of the assassin skill tree, I could insta-kill nearly anyone from stealth. This opened up the ability to tactically infiltrate a base without a single guard being able to raise the alarm. It was always highly satisfying to do this successfully, and I wish more of the game were centered around this. I mean, this is after all what Assassin's Creed games used to be. Assassin's Creed Odyssey looks fantastic. While sure it's not cutting-edge graphics, the world around you is beautiful and really entices you to want to explore, especially if you're interested in ancient Greece. I've actually been to multiple Greek islands multiple times. This game definitely nails the look and feel of that region. The architecture is a joy to climb on, and the various sites and landmarks visible from a long way off will always pull you into playing just one more hour. Designing a world like this is a much more organic way of getting players to want to explore it, rather than the Explorer mode option that doesn't tell you where quest markers and locations are, and instead just gives you a vague description of where you're supposed to be going. It's a real old school mechanic, but I turned that shit off immediately. My time is too valuable to be forced into wandering a region in hopes that I just happened to run into the quest objective. I really appreciated that Ubisoft didn't go overboard with mythology. This setting was ripe to throw harpies, sirens, and all kinds of creatures from Greek stories into it. They held off on that, and instead chose just a handful of situations to present some supernatural beings. These were the most enjoyable main fights in the entire game, and I appreciated how they were designed and revealed to me as a player. A lot of folks reported that their experience with this title was riddled with bugs. I put in quite a bit of time and really didn't encounter any game-breaking ones. That is not to say that they didn't happen though. However, the ride itself was fairly smooth and solid for me. Perhaps I was just one of the lucky ones. With all that out of the way, I have to get into some gripes that I have with this game. Maybe it was bad to jump into Odyssey immediately after I finished a playthrough of Witcher 3, because holy hell do conversations in this game feel weird and sporadic. Facial expressions change at the drop of a hat, and every character speaks with their whole body, flailing their arms every few seconds regardless of what they're saying. These two things combined made conversations feel robotic, like androids doing their best to mimic human behavior. Yes, I understand that these characters are just lines of code trying to tell me a story, but it's up to the game designer to make them as organic as they possibly can to keep the illusion alive. It got to the point where I was skipping cutscenes as I approached the end of the game, and that's never a good thing for an RPG. Speaking of conversations, it became incredibly clear that Ubisoft considers Cassandra the main protagonist of this story. The dialogue of Alexios felt off and phoned in throughout the entire course of the game. Whoever you play as, your sibling becomes someone you'll have to engage at some point. Since Cassandra was my antagonist, we had to engage in some storyline conversations. Her voice acting and facial expressions felt unbelievable, almost cartoonish. When I went to YouTube and watched the same cutscenes, but with the roles reversed, it was so much better and more believable. Alexios makes an actual believable bad guy, and Cassandra is incredibly easy to identify with. I like what Ubisoft attempted here with allowing the player to choose who will be their main protagonist, but it falls flat when one performance is so much worse than the other. On the topic of levels, well, there are levels in this game, again making it obvious that Ubisoft wants these titles to be more traditional RPGs moving forward. What I don't like about this and how it was implemented in this game is that there are literal content walls in this open world RPG. Oh sure, you can go to that island that's marked as 15 levels above you, but all the pirates around it are also 15 levels higher and are waiting to murder you the moment you get close enough. Even if you do make it to the island, all of the mobs and quests will be too difficult for you. This feels like an MMO, in a bad way. Once you really get going with the main quest lines, you quickly find out that you've experienced most of what questing in this game has to offer. There's a cult you have to wipe out, there's some keys you have to collect to unlock an ancient door, and oh yeah, your sibling is a brainwashed killer that has to be dealt with. It's only about 10% into the game where it really cuts you loose and says go. From here, you're free to do whatever you like, so long as you keep gaining gear and experience. Remember, you literally cannot progress the main storyline without doing side content. You don't get enough experience from the main campaign to go straight through. This was not a good decision on Ubisoft's part, and felt like intentional padding of their game length. Most of the side quests present in the game weren't even all that interesting, to the point where I started to ignore them in favor of attacking local military forts and strongholds. Sure, the experience wasn't as good, but I had fun doing it, and that's kind of the point of playing the game. I want to reiterate again that level walls are really stupid in a game like this. It's made so much worse by the fact that Ubisoft offers what they literally call time savers for real-world cash. If this practice doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth, well, I don't know what to tell you. This is some pretty disgraceful stuff. As we all know, every Assassin's Creed game is just some hipster in modern times viewing the story through their Animus system, and these scenes were cringy as they are in every Assassin's Creed title. You are occasionally forced to take a break from the Animus and learn about the gaggle of millennials who are running from a megacorporation and are seeking secrets of the past through the memories of direct descendants. That's all I gathered from those scenes, because holy hell, I thought the dialogue from the actual main game was bad. I couldn't get back to ancient Greece quick enough when this occurred. One other quick nitpick. Hostile zones are not marked at all, so as you're running through a newly discovered city, enjoying the sights and whatnot, you might accidentally step into a hostile building where of course every guard within a square block sees you immediately and raises the alarm. These areas are especially annoying in urban environments where there's lots of people around and it's difficult to pick out if a building is being actively guarded as you run by. They should be highlighted with a light red hue or something to alert the player that it's there. Oh, and while we're on the topic of nitpicks, boy, ancient Greece sure did have a lot of 6'5", 240-pound warrior women. I swear every other mercenary that tried to hunt me down had the size and build of Andre the freaking Giant, usually with the face to match. The ones covered in armor I was actually shocked to find out were women until I finally stabbed them in the throat and heard the feminine death gurgles. That will always be uncomfortable. I'm going to delve into some story stuff now, so if you don't want major plot points spoiled, then skip to here for the final wrap up and scoring. Alright? Here we go. So, supposedly your bloodline matters in some way, giving you special powers that allows you to conduct a murder fest across Greece, but this is never explained in the game. Okay, you're a descendant of King Leonidas, but why does that matter? From what is revealed at the end of the game, the possession of the artifact and Leonidas' spear is where all your power is derived from. Anyone who possesses the spear gets those powers, right? So what does bloodline have to do with anything? With the understanding that the Peloponnesian War ends with Sparta being the victor, it's still incredibly annoying that your actions in the war have absolutely zero effect on the story or overall game. You're helping conquer entire regions of Greece, but it is ultimately irrelevant. It's not even addressed at the end of the game. This was a huge missed opportunity for Ubisoft. The stage was already set with all of the historical characters and events in the game. They could have given the player the power to have some serious sway on the world, rather than just choosing what color tunics the guards in each region would wear. The sci-fi parts were, as they always are, stupid. The big revelation being that a bunch of ancient ones were here at the dawn of humanity, and one of them decided to let us craft our own fate rather than be enslaved to their bidding. Then there's some garbage about how there needs to be both order, represented by the Templars, and chaos, represented by the Assassins. A perfect balance. Wow, Ubisoft, so profound and in no way cliched at all. The ending to the cult plotline was laughably anticlimactic as well. Oh, Pericles' wife was the cultist leader all along, and now that you've murdered them all, she wants you to help found the Templar Order. Nah, I'll just kill you, thanks. But no matter, as the alien god people have already made it abundantly clear, a new cult will pop up anyway, so cutting through them all over the course of the game was ultimately fruitless. Great. After killing the cartoonishly evil Snidely Cassandra, the main story regarding Alexios' family was over. I had killed everyone I had the option to kill, with only Alexios' mother surviving. Apparently, the good ending is to spare absolutely everyone you can. Call me a vindictive bastard, but between my Spartan foster dad throwing me off a cliff and Cassandra killing pretty much the only bro you get in the game right before you battle her for the first time, I had no qualms with ending them all. Apparently, that was the wrong decision. Oh well, another primary storyline that ends with a soft fart. I know it sounds like I had a lot of negative things to say about this game, but it's because there was such potential here to be a truly great title rather than just being a good Assassin's Creed game. I really enjoy the setting of ancient Greece, so it already earned some interest from me purely because of its backdrop. Ubisoft certainly did the landscape justice with their world building, but some of the mechanics just felt a bit too repetitive, especially with combat and side quests. I would say this game is most certainly worth a playthrough despite all the criticisms I've mentioned. At the end of the day, the game is solid, and I honestly would have scored it higher if it weren't for Ubisoft's disgusting monetization model. With that, I'm giving Assassin's Creed Odyssey a 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching. What did you think of Odyssey? Were the time savers not as big of a deal for you as they were for me? Well, let me know down below or over on Twitter. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, why not hit that thumbs up and subscribe button to keep up to date with new content. Until next time.